Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the third installment of the Over the Board series recap videos. I played in an Over the Board tournament yesterday. Usually it's 4 games, but I was unfortunately only able to play 3 of them. I had to get going, so there's 3 games that I have to show you guys today from my Over the Board tournament that I played in just last night. It is Sunday morning, so good morning to everyone, depending on when you're watching this. And yeah, I will just run through the 3 games and show you how I performed. So feel free to skip ahead to the first game if you just want to get into it. But some details about the tournament is each game is 25 minutes with 5-second delay, which is pretty self-explanatory, but basically you and your opponent each have 25 minutes to make all your moves. And every time I make a move, the clock doesn't start ticking down for 5 seconds for my opponent. So I make a move, I press the clock stays the same, but after 5 seconds, it starts to go down. So there's no added time, but it will, the delay makes it so, especially in time crunches. There was one game I saw somebody have 1 second on their clock for like 30 moves or something. So as long as you make all your moves in 5 seconds, you will literally never run out of time. So that is the format of each game. And let's get into it. So my rating, USCF is 1280. I'm still provisional. I haven't actually checked. I should check. But I have to play like a handful of games more up until I get to 25, which is I think 25 is the amount of games you need to play where your rating is no longer provisional, like you have a quote unquote official rating. So yeah, I'm still it's one of those things where if I win a game, especially against someone high rated, it'll jump up like 50 points, and if I lose a game, it'll go down. So I'm still in that range where I really need to do super well up until game 25 so that I can get as many points as I possibly can. Because after that, I don't think you get as many points per game. So it's like when you have a NewChess.com account and you play somebody and your rating jumps up 200 or something, you know. So let us get into the first game. So I am white. I play against this person. I can't pronounce their name. I'm not even going to try, but I've played this person a couple of times. This would be the third time or maybe it's actually the second time we faced each other. He won the very first time, and like last time, I was white. So I play e4, as you guys know, and he played the exact same move this game yesterday as he did a couple months ago when I played him, which is d6, which is not a move that I see. I don't know if I've ever seen it, honestly, online. So he's a strong player, so I think he knows that it's maybe slightly, it's not that it's unsound, there's a reason you don't see this all the time, especially at high level, especially when you get to the 1900, 2000 ranges online. You just don't see it. So we just play a couple of very basic moves, and he already makes a mistake. And what's funny is I already knew this was a mistake when I reviewed my game a couple of months ago for the first time. I remember realizing that the evaluation went up, and I knew we had met this exact position yesterday as we did a couple months ago, but I couldn't remember the move to punish this. It is just simply d5. It is simply d5. Or sorry, no, it's e5, I believe, which is the best move. I believe e5. Yeah, that's the best move. And if you do this and this, they're forced to go back, and it's not fun for them. But I didn't know that in the game, so I just kept developing. They pushed e6. Again, very passive play, I personally feel like. And then I kind of just threw the ball in their court with this move. I didn't want to immediately castle in the event that I move back and they just start a big pawn storm and try and castle long or something. I threw the ball over to them. They played a6. I go back. They castle. I castle. They play h6. I go back. And then they do a very weird knight move, which I'm pretty sure they did this exact same reroute the first time we played. So I took, what I should have done is gone bishop g3, but I just didn't really feel like my bishop had much of a life on this diagonal, so I figured I would just takes, I push d5. They throw their knight there, which is not a terrible move. Again, I'm just really not punishing. Like, it's already equal, so that just goes to show if you don't punish your opponent for playing not bad openings, but ones that are not completely that don't do an amazing job of equalizing, which my opponent did not do in the opening. They did equalize because I'm not good, but so they took, I took here, I went rook e1, and they lashed out with f5, which I knew in the game, I was like, that can't be the right move. So I was debating which pawn to take. Go ahead and assume which one I did, and go ahead and assume which one is the better one. So it wants you to do this. It wants you to do this. They take with their rook, and then d takes e6, queen, and then so it's very funny that this is the sequence of moves it wanted, because what I ended up doing was taking this. They took this. I put my queen here. Bam, bam, and bam. Oh, sorry, that's not what happened. They pushed. So it's still plus 0.2 for white, plus 0.3, plus 0.2, as you can see by the evaluation here. Yep, plus 0.3. And a little bit of an embarrassing moment. I took on c7. That's not like an embarrassing moment. That's perfectly fine. The move itself isn't an inaccuracy. The reason that it's embarrassing is as soon as they pushed to f4, I was like, aren't they blundering a fork? I'm hitting both rooks. No, you are not. As soon as he went like here, I was like, oh. If some of you might already know this about me since I talked about it in my previous over the board games recap videos, but my board vision OTB is atrocious. It's just so bad. Like it's hilarious. When he did this move, obviously it's not like a blunder, like I won a pawn, but he, I'm gonna go back here and I'll just show you the sequence of moves. I went here and he won a pawn. He won back the pawn, which he of course saw when he pushed f4. But that's so embarrassing for me to think that I was forking them. I just don't know. I don't know. So they go there, they push, they come back with their knight. I push h4, which I didn't really feel like was a great move, but I didn't really know what to do at the time. They come here. I get my rook to this file, and they play the best move, which when I saw this, I was like, wow, that's a really strong move. If I just do something, random, for instance, they're threatening to go, oh yeah, they're threatening to do this, this, and this, which is, I was initially thinking they were threatening to like go here, which is kind of similar, but they don't get everything, So I took bam, 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 come here. We all play the best sequence of moves. So they do this, I give a check, they come here, and then I go here. What the computer wanted here instead of rook e8 was h5. You could give me an hour, and I wouldn't be able to figure out the point of h5. I guess it's to discourage any of these kind of ideas, or even to not let the king come in. I guess it makes sense. Part of the reason I pushed h4 initially, and then the knight went back, is so that I did have an h5 at some point, because I was always thinking there's some potential mating ideas if I can get my knight in a certain way and my rook over here. You never know what could happen. So he jumped his knight to c4. I just brought my king in. I went here, bam, which I saw this, and then I took this pawn. So black is up 0.2, but it's effectively, this is just super, super even. But I was a little bit worried because I knew how strong my opponent was, because he beat me a couple of months ago and we got down to kind of an endgame situation, and he just found basically all the best moves, or basically the first or second best move. So he comes here, I come here, he does this, threatening my rook. So I come here, which looking back, I slightly regret. I kind of wish I had just done something like this. Just kidding. I saw this in the game, actually. I was initially thinking, let me go rook e4, but then his knight was here. So basically my point is, I wish I would have kept the rooks on the board, but he decided to give this check. I came here, he took, and then jumped his knight there, which is I feel like that's a high level kind of sequence to get your knight to a potentially better square than it initially was by a series of checks. Taking my rook, I take back with the knight, and you get your knight here. The engine wanted knight c4. I'm not sure. Maybe, I'm really not sure why it wants knight c4. Yeah, I have no clue. Maybe to like do some other knight moves to potentially win this pawn, or usher these pawn. I guess it's to potentially do something like this and usher this pawn down. I'm not sure. So I went here, bam, 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 and unfortunately this is where I stopped recording my moves, because we got pretty low time. We were both under 3 minutes, and if you don't know, US Chess Federation, if you're under 5 minutes, you no longer have to take notation. So I think this is me guessing. I'm thinking this is what the sequence of moves were. I jumped my knight here, they did this, bam, bam, and then I can't remember the exact sequence of moves, but I remember they were able to, basically they had a bunch of scary pawns. This pawn was still here. Obviously it says this is a draw. This is just so hard to draw. I feel like one false move and it just, so anyway, let me just summarize. They ended up winning the game. Oh, so I guess this isn't a draw anymore. I guess the evaluation was slow for a second. Yeah, okay, so it says, yeah, +3. So at some point it went from a draw to plus. This is why knight endgames with pawns are so scary. Like it could go from equal to +5 in a second. So yeah, I lost my first game. A bit unfortunate because I thought I played pretty well. It said my accuracy was 90%. It said my opponent's was 90.4. So it's one of those where we both played very, very well, but he just played slightly better. I made a couple of inaccuracies. He was able to be up a pawn. Being up a pawn does not really mean anything in the endgame, depending on the position. Some endgames you could be up 2 pawns, and it's still a draw depending on what's happening. So I wasn't really that nervous in the game, but I knew I had very few winning chances because what's the chances of one of these pawns being able to roll? I wanted to get a draw, but yeah. So anyway, my opponent won this game. Yeah, let's get into the second game. So this game, my opponent is a girl by the name of Nirvana. 1569 is her rating, so I'm still 1280. Yeah, I've played her a couple times before. The other 2 times she was white and I was black. And funny enough, I'll show you the sequence of moves from like her perspective, because she did the exact same thing both times against me. Oh no, sorry. It was here, I went here, and she did this attack, the knight attack. And both games that we played, she beat me in. One of them, it came down to a very, very close end game, but again, my end game skills need a lot of work, and she ended up winning it. But this time, I was white. So none of this stuff happened. I went into the Scotch Gambit. I played the Scotch Gambit. Going into this game, going into most of my tournaments, I have no idea what I'm going to play. I don't really build up a repertoire. Like I feel like I'm still facing people where I'm like, I can wing it and I'm going to be fine, which is maybe not the smartest thing. But yeah, the Scotch Gambit is something that I've been trying to learn because it's a pretty deadly weapon. It can be, at least. They developed their bishop there, and I played a little bit of a trap, c3. And if they take, which my opponent did do, there's a brilliant move, bishop takes f7, which a lot of you who play the Scotch will know about. If the king takes, you can come here, you win that pawn, you sacrifice the bishop momentarily because with this check, there's nothing to block with. And she went back here, and I win this bishop. And what she did in the game, which I knew was a mistake, was take here, and then I take here. I knew that was a mistake. I've analyzed this before. I already knew it was +1. So, and we keep moving on. So this is the position right now. I'm able to castle. She's not able to castle. So what she does is she develops her knight, which makes sense. She's hitting this pawn. So I simply castle, which I believe is the best move. It is the best move, not even to defend this pawn, because just look at Black's position. They have 2 pieces developed. The king can't castle. It's not even going to be able to move, so it's just dire for them. So she brings her queen there, which I felt like was a pretty bad move. And what the evaluation wants is queen c1. Not a move that was even slightly on my radar. I have no idea what the point of queen c1 is. I guess if it's this, it's rook e1, okay, well, I was thinking d6 to continue defending. But yeah, you just keep piling on, basically, is what the whole point of this why this knight can't take that pawn. But I don't really understand queen c1, so I went queen g5, which I knew if they took here, that just can't be a good move, so they took there. I went queen c1 check. What I was initially expecting was this in the game, at which point I would go queen h6, because this is being hit. I'm gonna go rook e1 at some point. This is pretty bad for my opponent. Yeah, rook e1 is just killer. Oop, sorry, didn't mean to do that. Oh no, whoops. Sorry about that. Let me get back to the moves. So queen g5. So it didn't love queen g5. I went, it still wanted queen c1 here. Still am not really sure what that does. She went queen d8, I'm assuming to get out of the line of sight, the queen and the queen and the king. Obviously my rook is about to come to this file. So I brought my rook to the open file, to the semi-open file, hitting the knight. Obviously the knight's not able to move. So she went rook to e8. And everything in me was telling me to go knight b to d2. Everything in me was saying, go knight b to d2, don't, because obviously that's different from here because it's cutting the line of sight from the bishop, which is very strong. So you have to go here, which I knew. Everything in me knew this was probably the best move. but I don't know why I didn't end up playing. I'm going to be completely honest. So I ended up taking this pawn, which honestly, I kept telling myself, like, I was like, I know I'm going to win this game. Like, this is the king is just stranded there. Like, you know, the bishop's not getting out. This rook isn't going to see the light of day forever. So I knew I could kind of buy time and just, you know, play it out. So she went d5, presumably to continue defending this knight. I went knight here. I'm not entirely sure why I went knight here now, as opposed to knight b to d2, to be completely honest. Yeah, I have no idea. I don't know why I did that, because I was just mentioning it's not good to block the line of sight, but anyway. Bringing the knight back is literally the best move, which here is the line, is the moves that it wants, and it says white is up +4, +4.5. I'm assuming you're going to take this pawn with a potential fork in a second. Yeah, it's pretty bad. I also have these 3 passed pawns that could just start storming down the board. It's pretty bad for my opponent. That's not the sequence of moves that happened. I went here. She jumped her knight in here, which I knew what she was going for was this, and I was like, I was like, okay, this is going bad to worse for my opponent. Like, I just knew it could not be the right move. I was assuming a knight to f6 would happen, just kind of trying to force a bunch of trades and stuff. I went here. The evaluation wanted this, but I thought, just get my rook, no more forks or anything. She went c6, which I immediately saw was a blunder. Just take the knight. The pawn is pinned. It cannot, you know, take back. And obviously, if you take like here, I'm just up a ton of material because this pawn can never recapture. So after the game, we talked about it, and she said, yeah, c6 was probably the biggest mistake, because she just said she didn't see that I could take the knight and the pawn was pinned. So she went here. I lifted my rook. She brought her knight back, and I just took this pawn, threatening, just very simple bishop f5. Moved the king to c7. I was thinking maybe she saw all this, but saw that my queen is undefended, but I just have a check here. So I went here, right, and then it's just the king is on b6. Like, I didn't know what the evaluation was saying, but I was like, I just know the evaluation is saying at least +5. So I gave this check. The king went back, and then I went here to defend my rook, which I saw all of this, and I'm sure she did too. So I took, she took, I took, and then she took this pawn. And now I'm going to play a sequence of moves which are not very good. I went rook a1, bam, I took this pawn, bam, bam, bam. And I saw all of this. I knew my bishop was going to get trapped, but I told myself, I just start pushing h4, h5, h6, h7, take this. And it even says, forget about, just who cares about your bishop, just keep pushing. Even if they take here, keep pushing. Even if they do something like this to try and stop, you can do that. That's not a move I saw. I was thinking I was probably going to do something like this and whatever. So she pushed b6. I went h4. She went queen b7. I took on b6. She took, and I pushed h5. And I just knew I was winning. Obviously, I'm a little bit unhappy with myself in this moment because I knew I was winning, and I knew this was probably going to still be a win, but I was a little bit annoyed with myself that I allowed this kind of counterplay. Like, I should have been able to find some kind of checkmate or winning the queen or something. So my conversion is still pretty bad, but nonetheless, I still felt confident. So yeah, like I mentioned, I went knight g3 to attack the bishop. She went back here. I went here to attack it, and then she went back. And then at this point, it wants this. I'm not really sure why. Oh, I guess it's more forcing here. King c7, and then it wants knight f6. Okay, that's very high level. Okay, I should have been able to see something like that. What I did was the exact same thing, is to come here and then to come here. But this is actually probably a better square for the knight, to be honest. But anyway, she went here. It wanted this, but whatever. I went king f1. She played the best move, knight d5. I went here, hitting the bishop. She gave a check. I played the best and really the only move. Coming back here just really isn't an option. Brought the knight here. I pushed. She brought her knight there. I hit the bishop. Went to b1. And it wanted this. Again, with knight moves, it's just very hard. Like, I wanted to move my knight so that I could start pushing these pawns. That was my whole point. And also to hit this. She defended it. I push g4. I'm gonna move this knight. I'm gonna start pushing these pawns, and everything's gonna be fine. She went bishop b2, which I didn't really understand in the middle of the game. I thought this line of sight was pretty good, to be honest, but that's what she did. I pushed f4, and this just looks super crushing. Like, yeah, you have these pawns which are kind of scary, but you can't push this because I take this. You can't push this because I just do that. So these pawns are immobile. She goes back with her knight to h8, which is a pretty depressing place for a knight to be. Knights on the rim are grim, like the saying goes, but knights in the corner are just, Lord have mercy. So I saw this, I took, she took, and then I just pushed h6. Okay, so I should mention the next sequence of moves are probably incorrect. We both got to low time, so I stopped recording. So the next sequence of moves aren't fully correct, but the end position is correct. So just bear with me. So I think these these moves are all correct, I believe. Yep, these moves are correct. She goes, and then in this position, she flagged. She flagged on time. I like pointed to her clock, and the clock went out, and she was like, ah. And interestingly, we both, she asked if we could continue playing on because she thought the position was really interesting, and it is. I knew this is obviously just completely crushing, and I knew she did too, but there's always these two pawns which are kind of scary. Maybe if they're on the third row or the second row, they'd be a little bit scarier, but if they're here, like I could even sack here, and I think I'd be like, she goes here, I could genuinely sack here, and I think I'd be perfectly fine. Like I just pushed, it's just over. But that is not what ended up happening. I can't remember what sequences of moves we made. I think I actually did sack my knight because obviously the game was over, but she said, let's continue playing. I kind of want to see where this goes out. At some point, I think I sacked this knight. Oh yeah, that's what happened. I sacked this knight, and she didn't end up taking because she knew that would just be losing. So she came here. I think I went here. I won this pawn back, and then so anyway, the whole point of this is that I ended up winning the game, which was nice, but I should have been able to win it much sooner. But nonetheless, I got a good win against a very high-rated opponent. Let's get into the third and final game. The third game I played as black, which makes sense because I played white both times in the beginning, which I don't think I've ever had happen. Usually it's black, white, or white, black, but I played white twice. And so my opponent, Diksha, she's a funny person. I've played her a couple times. I don't know how, I'm really bad at gauging people's ages, but she's pretty young. I want to say like between the ages of like 11 and 14, which I know are like wild age ranges, but like she's pretty young. She's pretty good as well. Maybe she's like 15, 16, I'm not sure. But anyway, I've played her 2 other times. One time she won, and then one time we drew. So she has a winning record against me. And she plays an Italian. I don't want to deal with any of this stuff if I bring my knight here. So I think my OTB, I'm always going to go bishop c5 instead. This position has been reached a million times. OTB online, Lichess online, chess.com. It's been reached a million times. Super symmetrical. I've played this line. I've played against it. It's very common. So we both do this sort of stuff. I thought queen e2 was a very weird move. To be honest, I didn't really understand the point of it. I thought she was going to come here to just weed out my bishop. That's very common. So I castle. She goes bishop e3, and I jump my knight in, which is the best move. I anticipated this, and I was like, okay, if she does this, I'm going to jump my knight in to kind of hit this. What I thought she was going to do is just initiate a bunch of trades. Oh, I guess that wouldn't have been good if she had taken like this. Oh, right. Sorry. I should mention, in the middle of the game, the reason I did this was because I knew there's a trap. If they take like this, they lose a piece. So I should have mentioned that before. I knew that they couldn't take like that. If they take, they have to take like this, which is what she ended up doing in a second. But she threw her queen back, which again, I just felt like I didn't know if I was fully better, but I just knew like queen e2, queen d1, or queen d1 is just bad. She jumps her knight in. I push c6, which if you saw the evaluation before, the previous move it wanted c6, but I always know c6 is a common idea to weed whatever pieces out here in case I want to go back. I might be able to push. So she took, I took, she took, I took, she took, and what I did here was I took the bishop, and then she played knight takes c6. If I simply take here, she'll be up a pawn. And I saw most of this, but I didn't actually know what I was going to do in this position. What it wants is bishop e6. Bishop e6, and it's saying Knight comes back here, and black is just ever so slightly better. I didn't love this, so I instead just took this pawn. They took with their queen, I took the knight, and it's super, super even. I have more pawns in the center, but I was assuming she would do something like this to not allow. Well, obviously she castled, so I went rook here. I thought she was going to do this to not allow any of these kind of ideas, which would have been very annoying. But what she ended up doing was queen a6, which I didn't feel like was a great move. It's just kind of a one-move threat attacking this pawn. So what I did was the best move. I pushed d5, assuming we might get something like this, which I was more than happy. It's not that I was more than happy, but I was perfectly fine going into this. Yeah, I have doubled pawns, but I have better control of the center. These pawns are going to be able. I know that I only have one pawn versus basically three. I know this pawn is kind of defending this file, sort of, but I was happy to go into this. But she pushes f3, which I immediately knew was not a good move. I was like, that can't be the right move. It's just one of those moves you're just like, I have a gut feeling. I don't know how to punish it, but I was like, I know that's not a good move. So I lift my rook. I didn't really feel like that was the best move, but I was like, I might have some ideas to like bring my queen here, do this, start some mating attacks. You never know what could happen. She brought her queen here, attacking my rook, which I didn't see, but I was like, this is very easy. I could even do something like this, which I feel like would be perfectly fine for me. I guess not, maybe, but a bunch of these kind of moves, check, check. Yeah, bunch of maneuvering kind of queen and rook moves. Whoops, something just came on my screen. 1 second. Okay. I brought my queen here, and then she took, I took, and then she went rook f to e1, which, as you can see, the evaluation has spiked in black's favor. And within 10 or 15 seconds, and I highly recommend nobody ever do this, ever, unless you're playing online and your opponent can't hear you. Within, I don't know how long it was under 20 seconds for sure, she immediately goes, she says out loud, I'm an idiot. She's like, oh my God, I'm an idiot. She says something to that effect out loud, which obviously I saw, like as soon as she played this move, I was like, oh, I just go here and I trap the queen. I immediately saw that that was a blunder, but don't ever give your opponent even the slightest bit of like, I know that's kind of hard, especially when you just full on blunder. She's played like a million queen moves. Like I recommend not doing that because it just makes the opponent's life so much easier. So that's what I did. I trapped the queen. She took, I took, and then she took this piece. And I knew this was going to be not an easy win because I still have to prove it. She went back to queen e2. Rook e2. She went back. Oh wow, can I speak? She went rook e2. I did a check. We went here, and then I can't remember the exact sequence of moves because even though it wasn't under 5 minutes, I stopped recording for a couple seconds, but at a certain point, she blundered her rook. There was some kind of situation where her rook was here, her queen was here, and I was able to give this check. I can't remember if my queen was here maybe and she did this sort of thing, and I can't remember it exactly, but before I could even do the move, I saw her eyes shift over and she was like, oh my God, I resign. And she resigned before I could give the check and win the rook. So yeah, very, very, I played with 93% accuracy. She played with 87% accuracy. Yeah, so that is the OTB recap. Not the most interesting of games, I have to be completely honest. The Scotch Gambit was probably the most interesting, but yeah, the first game, both my opponent and I, it was just almost basically fully equal, which for someone like me, I feel like I have to be outright winning in the middle game to win a game. If me and my opponent are just in a completely equal endgame, I have a good feeling my opponent's going to be able to find the best sequence of moves and I will not, and I'll blunder something and they'll be able to win. So that's why I ended up losing the first game, because knight endgames are the toughest endgame for me, to be honest. Rook endgames are tough, but knight endgames are really, really tough, especially with an outside pawn. It's so hard to know what kind of maneuvers you need to do. And then the second game, the Scotch Gambit, obviously was a nice win. I should have been able to win it sooner, but nonetheless, I was able to get a win. And then this one was I wouldn't say an easy win. It was just kind of a very simple kind of Italian game opening. We both castled, a bunch of pieces got traded down, went to an endgame with queens and rooks, but my opponent just hung the queen, or got the queen trapped, and that was that. So yeah, thank you all for watching. I'll try and play more over the board tournaments in the coming weeks. They are each Saturday. They're pretty close to me, like 15 odd minutes away. I don't think I'll be participating in them every Saturday. They do cost $5. They were free at one point, so annoyingly they cost money now, but it's understandable. People want prize pools and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I will probably play maybe 2 a month, maybe every other Saturday, every 3 Saturdays sort of deal. So you should see these kind of videos every couple weeks. Hopefully, I'm trying to hit 1500 USCF by the end of the year. That would be a really nice goal. I should say, after this tournament, my rating went up to 1370. Like I mentioned before, my rating can go up really high if I win games. So I'm up at 1370, which is, I know, kind of low for someone who's 1900 online, but it just, over the board is just a completely different thing. I really like a GM once mentioned, your over the board rating, whether it's FIDE, USCF, whatever it isn't just your chess rating, it's your mental rating as well. It's much different making moves in front of somebody, watching them think, watching them watching you think, you watching them get flustered, them watching you get flustered. It's just completely different, to be honest. So yeah, thank you all for watching, and I will see you guys soon. Hopefully, let me know if you like these kind of recaps. I'm going to continue bringing them. I know some of you have asked for them because I did some of them in like February, maybe March's time, but I took a break from OTB because my record was really, really bad for a while, so I had just very low morale. I didn't really want to spend $5, drive 15 minutes both ways to just lose a bunch of games. So, but I feel like I've been playing good chess, so I jumped back into OTB, and I got 2 wins out of 3, which is not bad. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, everyone, and I will see you guys next time. Take care.